It's about history. It's about preservation. It's about sense of place here on Eastern Long Island. With Esperanza Leon, I'm Irwin Levy, and this is Our Hamptons. Esperanza.
Hello, Irwin.
You know, Gerard Drive. All right, I always like to go back into my own neighborhood. We're back up in Springs now. Gerard Drive is really a place that's near and dear to my heart because I walk and or bike ride on Gerard Drive almost every day. Now, granted, Esperanza, I know you live in Wainscott. Everyone from Our Hamptons knows you do.
Yes, and that kind of trip that you just mentioned requires a passport for me.
It it certainly does. It's the same way people that live on Gerard Drive or up in Springs in general, particularly in high season. You want to meet in Bridgehampton?
Yeah, you feel the same way. I know.
You really must.
Meet me in Southampton.
Meet me in Southampton.
Maybe in November.
Right. maybe in November, and if you charter me a helicopter. But
no, don't touch that.
We don't like helicopters. Yeah, we ixnay on the helicopter. We're not going to discuss that kind of thing. But Gerard Drive. Now, realizing, of course, okay, we know you don't live in Springs, but you've been on Gerard Drive many times.
I have. Yes.
And it is, from a physical standpoint, its beauty is undeniable. For those who haven't been on Gerard Drive in Springs, it's virtually off of Springs Fireplace Road. You go to Old Fireplace Road, and then you will ultimately hit Gerard Drive. And we'll get into the history momentarily, but just to touch on what it's like, it's very, how would you describe it? It's almost got a little bit of a Fire Islandy kind of vibe. It's got a lot of different kind of feelings because it's a very narrow road where on one side you look onto Gardiners Bay, which will let into Napeague Bay, actually, the further down you go. And
right
on the other side, you have Accabonac Harbor.
Right, the creek, right?
Before we went on, I was going to say to Esperanza, we always have a little dialogue before. I was going to say, we got to get the crick in there.
Creek.
But she did slide it right in perfectly. So yeah, there it is on Bonnet Creek. And really the vistas there, Esperanza, again, I bike ride on this road all the time. I mean, the vistas really are beautiful because on a clear day, you look to the north, you see the North Fork, you see Connecticut, you look across, you see Gardiners Bay, you look south and you're seeing the Napeague Strip.
Yeah.
And, it really, and then to the right, the beauty of Accabonac Harbor, and that side is really, it's just stunning.
But it's interesting, and it's very still very flat and sort of treeless, right? I mean, it's like a sand spit. And I was thinking, as you're saying, you could look at to Napeague Harbor. I'm thinking how you more than likely would be able to, in the past anyway, stop at that overlook that as you're leaving Montauk on the new Montauk Highway, you'd be able to stop at that overlook and look straight out across to this area, which, however, nowadays, I think that whole section in that part of Montauk is so overgrown that you probably can't see that anymore.
Probably. I don't spend all that much time in Montauk, but I mean, the times that I know the overlooks and things you're referring to, but I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, there are probably vistas where you are looking across, but
I guess my point is more that, like, even Napeague stretch, it's like this is a small version of the stretch, to me, and that you are able to have that vista that you're talking about that's unimpeded by a bunch of vegetation is really something to consider. Like how wonderful that is, because that really brings you back so many years, like how it probably has been for centuries.
I would agree. And to your point, I think it's a good point. I used Fire Island, but I actually, the Napeague Strip is probably more analogous to Gerard Drive because you do, especially the further out you go on that strip, where it really gets pretty narrow, it looks like, if you look on a map, it looks like a cigarette, literally.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you see both sides, and that's what Gerard is. When you're at certain points of it, and you're looking to the left, and it's the bay, and looking to the right, going sort of going back, which is actually sort of going south. You're looking at the harbor, but and of course, it does have probably the best view anywhere of Gardiners Bay, but it also has a very cool history. And I got to credit Nick Bryan, who's a friend of mine I know from Springs, very active in East Hampton Trails. He's very active in the Accabonac Protection Committee, and he's a real student of Gerard Drive. And he actually wrote a piece about Gerard Drive, and that's a lot of the information we're getting for today's dialogue. And it really is a fascinating. The whole history of it is also fascinating. It's really was originally called Cape Gardiner.
Right.
That whole neighborhood,
Yes.
you talk to old Bonnickers, that's what they'll call it to this day, Cape Gardiner, not Gerard
Or
Drive.
maybe is that kind of Fireplace Beach?
Yeah. So yes, right. Fireplace Beach, I guess, would sort of be the very tip of Fireplace Road, which is not far from here, obviously. I mean, Gerard Drive goes almost to the end of Fireplace Road. You have a street afterwards, Driftwood Drive, and then it's a couple of blocks, and you're at Fireplace, which is the end of Springs Fireplace Road. But all of these English names. It was Gardiner's Island, which was originally Isle of Wight, and that's a name we all know, old British name. But again, we're not going to get into too much about Gardiner's Island, but Gerard Drive really started. There was actually, Esperanza, there really was a Mr. Gerard and Mrs. Gerard, Daniel,
Yes.
Carolyn Gerard, who apparently, and again, we always have to issue sort of a disclaimer when we discuss these stories. We research this from a variety of different sources, and sometimes years seem to vary. And so there's sort of a gray area. We can't really etch it in stone, but I think we could make a blanket statement that this really started going down Esperanza in the 1930s.
Yeah, I'd say, you could probably confidently say 1935. The source, Long Island collection at the East Hampton Library is so fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
And they do cover weekly some interesting topics. And they did feature a map of this area and the auction that took place in 1935. That was the auction where Mr. Gerard purchased this 1.5 miles of land.
Exactly correct. This part is coming directly from Nick Bryan's article, which I think he wrote for an Accabonac Protection Committee newsletter. But Daniel Gerard and his wife Carolyn, they were a broker from Up Island, I believe East Setauket. They purchased this 1.5 miles from the town of East Hampton for $125,000 with the hopes of developing it. And apparently he convinced, I guess this was the negotiation, the town, East Hampton town, to build a road down the center in exchange for what was 9 acres of parkland that he named after his wife, Carolyn. It is Carolyn Gerard Park.
Mm.
Now, it's not a classic park per se. Really, when you're on Gerard Drive, it looks like, really
is it more of a preserve?
Yeah, it's more like a preserve, and it looks like two driveways, or two wide driveways running off. There's no signage telling you that it's a park in anywhere. And one side goes off onto Gardiners Bay, and the other side, which I think is the prettier side, goes off into Accabonac Harbor, and it puts you right at the foot of the harbor. Really gorgeous vistas, to the properties that I guess line Old Stone Highway and Springs Fireplace Road. Really, just beautiful vistas. Osprey Nest. It really is a natural setting. Really, it's hard to describe it verbally. It's really a place you really
have to take in. Yeah, in person.
You have to take in. But Esperanza, it's probably, and we'll bring Fire Island in or any other barrier island, one could make the argument that it might have been a place that never should have been built on.
Yes. I think that would probably be accurate, and nowadays probably wouldn't happen.
Probably today would not happen. And if we read all of the gloom and doom of what's going to happen here in the next 40 or 50 years of Napeague separating from Montauk and everything else,
Yes.
who knows what the future of this is? But even Nick writes in this article, during a feisty nor'easter, the bay has been known to meet the harbor. And, Gerard Drive was super prone to flooding and everything else.
I'm
If you've been
sure.
on the road, the town has done revetments and culverts and all sorts of things. But I will say, when you see the housing stock here, and, Daniel Gerard developed this 250 lots, and these houses, and we've discussed everything from Fairfield and the supersizing. These houses were about 600 square feet.
So they were true beach cottages. He wasn't looking to attract the well-heeled crowd necessarily. If I
not at
have to
$100
put it
bucks,
in some way.
not at $100 a quarter acre lot back in the day, somewhere in the 1930s. I don't think so. But, and again, going back in time, think about how it was to get out here in the 1930s.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I mean, okay, you took the railroad out, but then to even get up here, and Daniel Gerard, now this was from a 1930s sales brochure, so take that for what it is. Then his quote was, "Except for the road, everything there is as God gave it to the Indians." So that was Daniel Gerard's quote. I mean, it was a natural environment. So anyway, the town did build this road, which flooded out. Even in my time here, Esperanza,
Yeah,
since
yeah, I know.
1989,
Yeah.
I remember this road flooding out and
Impassable. Yes.
impassable. And, looking at some of these houses here, and some of them are those kind of beach houses, like on stilts.
On stilts. Yeah. I was.
And
Yeah.
without question, the beach has been eroding. And and look, this is also pricey real estate. I mean, it is a one of a kind of setting there. It truly is. But I always would be on this road, whether I'm with someone or if I'm walking with Rachel here or whatever. And somehow it always gets to be, this is a great place if grandma and grandpa bought the house and you inherited it. Because I don't know if I'd necessarily want to fork over this kind of money for something that really looks tenuous.
Well, that certainly wouldn't meet FEMA standards, I'm sure.
I can't imagine. And I always think that too, not only FEMA standards, but how do these people get insurance? Or are they just paying exorbitant amounts for it?
Yeah, I don't understand it all at all. I think those kinds of places, it's kind of like having a house in the dune,
Yeah.
I think, yeah, so nice, but not.
Yeah, right. And just like,
It's not meant to be.
It's just, it's funny, like it is such a natural environment. And in a sense that makes it feel so right. But then on the other hand, it's such a fragile environment that it feels almost all wrong. Is that possible? Am I saying, it just.
Oh yeah, no, it is. You can have two truths in one.
Right.
In one breath.
Yeah, exactly. But now, and they've also had issues there with, really, now we're really getting in the weeds, no pun intended, but I guess it does have to be said. I mean, there was, they had sewage issues there. They were, with the high nitrogen, and it was essentially, you had a high water table,
right.
And, the houses built, the way they were built. I mean, it was sort of the perfect storm. And again, this is also not a somewhat recent vintage. The town over whatever the past, I'm going to call it a decade, whatever, they installed public water. Before that, apparently people really were bringing their water from elsewhere. You really weren't drinking that water. I mean, it was just not great, according to this article from Nick. And according to people I knew who lived there, had told me, the same kind of things. But Esperanza.
Well, no, and I was just going to say, sorry.
Yes.
I mean, that originally there were, what was it? Outhouses. Like there weren't really.
Yes. That
right.
that was also
no indoor plumbing.
No. No,
Yeah.
no. And that was a lot of it going on there at the time. But from a point of view of where we can restore the faith a little. And again, this place has a long history. There are people who've lived here for a very long time. There's a guy, he's still here. I think he's 92 years old. There's a guy, Ray Harchin. Do you know Ray?
Yes, yes, from the boat building
Right. He's at the
society.
Amagansett Classic Boat Building. But according to Nick's article, I mean, Ray has lived there since literally the 1930s.
Since the beginning.
Since really from the beginning, maybe born there. I don't know. There was an Edwards family, a fishing station. Now, we were touching on this right before. Again, it's sort of related, I guess, to like Lazy Point, the Menhaden, the fish processing. And you seem to have a little bit of knowledge on this and how it related to Fireplace, Esperanza.
Well, I just thought if it was a fishing station, I wondered whether it had anything to do with the different, I think they call them tri-works, where they had, they processed the bunker fish to make the oil, so that's
Right.
what was used before synthetic lubricants, which was the fish factory at Promised Land that we, many of us know about.
Right. Which they said you used to be able to smell for miles.
Oh, it was in Amagansett and in Devon. That was where the big complainers, right?
I would think
if the wind was blowing the right way, it was the smell of money.
Exactly. So I don't know if it was to that extent up here. I mean, just by the sheer size, I don't think they had as big an operation, but there were still things like that, going on. But yeah, to your point, I mean, like, again, this was, can we use the word primitive? And
I was going to say remote. I was going to use the word remote, and then going back to the Gerards. It's interesting how these developments, that there were so many grand schemes and plans, like Carl Fisher with Montauk, Mid-Hamptons in Wainscott, and this all got kiboshed, the plans, due to the Great Depression.
Right. Exactly right. So that you're completely true. And that definitely, to say it put a damper on things is probably putting it mildly.
Well, and I would hazard to say that actually that was a fortunate thing, not for them, obviously,
right,
and for the loss of the revenue that they would have gotten through the developments, but for our the inheritors of this natural beauty that these weren't developed into 250 lots.
Exactly, and to that exact point, the town of East Hampton, to their credit, through community preservation funds, has really made a lot of efforts buying property on Gerard Drive, not just property, I mean, buying houses on Gerard Drive and then removing the structures to return really this to the natural setting. And when you walk on Gerard Drive, don't get me wrong, I mean, remember, some of the houses now are a little bigger, but there are no real McMansions or supersized houses here. I mean, I would venture to say there's not a house. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say there's not a house over 3,000 square feet on Gerard Drive. I really don't think so. I mean, even the ones that, to me,
thank goodness for that.
Yeah, exactly. Because remember, these are small lots. But not only that, it really would just overwhelm the land. But the town has really made a concerted effort, and they've been buying these properties, demolishing the structures, and then giving it nature preserve designation or
community preserve, right? It's all open space, in other words.
And it's just reverting back to nature, and
right.
And it's funny. Nick writes a quote in here: "For some of us, this undevelopment is a source of great joy," and I like that line.
No truer words.
I think that's really. I think what he said is really, it's really nice. And again, not only that, it removes the septic systems also, and all of that contributed to all this. So, which have contributed to great amounts of contamination in particular for Accabonac Harbor. This is some serious episode we're having all of a sudden. Really? You think so? Esperanza and I have spoken about this over there over time. You know, how these episodes have peaks and valleys. Some of them we're sitting here like, we're laughing out loud in a sense, and then there are other times we're talking, and I'm not going to say we're wallowing in misery, but it's just like the subject matter can get a little bit denser. But
Well, no, for me, you know what, Irwin, I feel like I get lost in sort of the poetry of this environment. I feel like I'm more in a reverie than anything sort of heavy.
I like that. I like that. The poetry of this environment, that's a nice way of putting it. I like that a lot. And it really is true, because we do have to revert back to that and say, just think of what we're talking about. This place really is special. And it really does have this natural beauty. And especially now, it's funny. And here's, we could even almost start wrapping this up, but, Esperanza, this is something over, the numerous episodes, we are in season 2 now. And, some of these episodes we look back on season 1, and some of it was sort of waxing a little nostalgic of what was, and how we would talk about how we've seen landscapes obliterated not only by housing but by screening. But interestingly, for all of that talk, Esperanza, Gerard Drive is getting better.
Yes. Yeah. No, everything is bleak, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, so not everything is bleak. I mean, Gerard Drive, with the initiative of the town, how in a place where, with enormous development pressures, they're removing structures on Gerard Drive.
Yeah.
Come on. Wow.
And just so you know, I mean, not that I'm a fan of removing structures.
Okay, right.
Especially with the affordable housing crisis. But in this case, I would say bravo.
Right. Because again, as we started in this episode, one could make the argument that this was the kind of, and believe me, there are a lot of fragile places similar to Gerard Drive that we could discuss the same kind of thing along Sammy's Beach in Northwest Woods. Yes. We could go to Southampton around Town Point. It's a similar kind of environment, a narrow, Esperanza used a very good term, like a sand spit. Even sections of Napeague and Amagansett Dunes or Beach Hampton.
Yes, for sure.
Some of those structures really, I mean, it's fragile land with.
Yes. Yeah. And instead of demolishing these small houses and leaving it open, we're demolishing houses and building even bigger,
even bigger houses. And that is a problem.
And that's unsustainable. Yeah.
Not completely unsustainable, but again, to give props to Gerard Drive, to that community and to the town for recognizing it. I mean, a lot of times we talk about how we're disappointed in some of the things the town does or doesn't do, but we have to say here, they recognized something and acted on it.
Yeah, there's a good history here.
There really is. But I will say, Gerard Drive, especially in off season, is really worth a trip from far. It has a very special vibe. And you know what? Leading a lot of walks here and biking this, one other thing I love about Gerard Drive, it looks different depending on the direction you're going.
Oh, interesting. The light changes,
completely, not just the light. And you made a point that it is not tree lined. You walk there in the summer, you're not getting any shade. I mean, that you are roasting there. I mean, it's that kind of environment, but it has a very different feel when you're walking northward or southward. Totally different.
And I presume you're more familiar with this, like you were saying, on a clear day, but you can see clear across to Gardiners Island
easily.
You can see the white windmill. Or no?
Not with the naked eye.
No.
At least I haven't.
You can see it from Lazy Point, so I'm just wondering if from this perspective I haven't taken a good look.
I have not. Wow, you learn something new every day. I'm going to bring my binoculars on.
Now you're going to take a look.
And see if I can see. I have. I mean, it really does look like a completely undeveloped. I mean, it is one of the most natural environments on the entire East Coast.
Exactly.
Maybe the most
pristine.
Yeah,
That's pristine.
that is pristine. So, but I have not seen that windmill. It's interesting. Maybe from Lazy Point, you are looking at a different perspective, but I haven't seen it from Gerard. But Gerard does offer panoramic vistas, really 360 virtually, when you're looking to the north, Connecticut, North Fork, Gardiners, and Napeague, Montauk, just really, really worth the trip, and just such natural beauty there. So I'm endorsing Gerard Drive, Esperanza. Can I speak for you and say our Hamptons endorses Gerard Drive?
We endorse, yes, we endorse Gerard Drive. Is there good clamming too?
That's not really my wheelhouse, but I do see a lot of fishermen there, and I assume people are clamming there as well. So,
so
yes,
it's like a jump into the past.
Exactly, and at
little time travel.
Yeah, and at low tide, you can walk across to Louse Point. Another beautiful,
very cool,
another beautiful peninsula just on the other side. It's sort of where, when you walk around to Gerard Point, sort of where Accabonac Harbor and at that point Napeague Bay sort of meets. So it's really a special environment and totally worth the trip. So, Esperanza, thanks for taking that journey from Wainscott to the Great North.
Little meander.
A little bit of meandering over there, but
I love it.
That was fun for me. I mean, a special place for me.
Yeah, I just want to say how every topic that we talk about, it's and I've said this before, I think, it just makes me want to explore more, not only physically, going to these places, but learning more of the history. We're talking about Gardiner's Island, the fireplace, what was happening in those, in the 18th century. It just, you go down that rabbit hole. And I thank you for inviting me to do that.
Well, yeah, it's right back at you, but it really is fun because, it's uncanny how a story is uncovered at every turn. And, the deeper you delve and the deeper you dive in, the more cool stuff you really do uncover. And it really is fun.
And we're just scratching the surface here.
I mean,
right?
Completely. I mean, this is just, you get into the whole Gardiner's Island thing. I mean, that's a piece of really American history, European history. I mean, however you want to describe it, to go down that as well. But, it really is just, I'm shaking my head, but I'm probably, good thing our audience isn't looking at my silly smirk right now, but I do have it on because I am thinking about it like that. And it really is true, but,
put smiles on our faces. Yeah.
And there are always smiles on our faces. And again, last word on this, Esperanza, better on a bicycle or on foot than in a car.
Certainly. Yes.
You see it in a completely different manner, both ways. Well, until next week, what are we going to come up with next? How can we get to top this? I have a feeling we will.
There's no shortage.
No shortage.
Always fun.
Okay. Thanks, Esperanza.
Thanks, Irwin.
Thanks so much for joining us. New episodes of Our Hamptons are released every other Tuesday. Find them wherever you get your podcasts.